Hello BookTube, my name is Kate and this is my channel chaptercviii. And today I'm going to be talking about charismatic baddies. So I have 5 books here, 6 books here, 6 books here, 7? No. 5. So today I'm going to be talking about baddies with pizzazz. So I was listening to this mashup of like Disney villains songs and I was like, all the bad guys in Disney movies are terrible human beings, but they also have a lot of flair. So I was just like thinking, there are a lot of books that have bad guys with flair. And so I'm going to talk about them. Yeah. Because if you're like me, there's certain really weird things that you just really enjoy in books. Like, for example, I love when there's like a long lost parent who has a lot of power trope. Or like the hesitant hero, like he didn't want the greatness, it was thrust upon him and he had to carry that burden or whatever. You know, like there are certain tropes or just certain really specific aspects of books that usually draw us in. And for me, one of many things that I just am about is charismatic bad guys. I also want to give the disclaimer that the baddies I mentioned in this video, I don't agree with anything that they're doing. I don't agree with what they represent. I don't agree with what they do, their actions, or anything like that. But I am saying that they're charismatic. And part of the reason that bad guys are so effective is being charismatic. You actually can convince people to side with you. And I think that that's something that a lot of people can relate to, is that when someone is really talented or really charismatic, it's easier to let them get away with things than people that might not be as charismatic or might not have as many, admirers and things like that. The issue though is that I might read a book and love the bad guy and then immediately forget all the names of the characters in the book. So this is gonna be an adventure, but we're gonna start easy. The first charismatic baddie I want to talk about today is the other mother from Coraline. If you have never read Coraline, which I didn't until I was an adult because it creeped me out, just the pictures creeped me out when I was a child, and I was also not allowed to read anything creepy or anything magical. How sad. But if you've never read Coraline, there's this little girl who is very, very bored with her life. She's just so bored, and so she kind of wishes for something different and something better or something more interesting. And it ends up, she gets it, she finds this other world that's basically her world, but everyone's wrong and different. And over there is the other mother. And the other mother has buttons for eyes and wants to keep Coraline there forever. She's also really creepy and has like spider body at one point. It's a whole thing. But she's got style. She's got like the sharp edges with the pointy chin and her like short jagged haircut. She's very like skeletal kind of because she turns into like a spider. I mean, what more do you need? Give him the old razzle dazzle with 8 legs. I guess you gotta stand on one, so maybe 7 of them. It's a lot of razzle-dazzle. But yeah, I guess she has to have pizzazz, because otherwise she's not going to be able to tempt Coraline to stay at all the funs here and scary creepiness. But yeah, I just feel like she's a very charismatic character. And even though I'm kind of picturing this movie-wise, the fact that her eyes are buttons is so just teetering on that uncanny valley, that edge there, where it's like she looks right, but then there's the buttons, which are not quite right. They're still round like eyes. They're still, dark in the middle like eyes, but they're wrong. And I think that that's part of what really adds to the uneasiness that comes with her as a character. The next charismatic baddie is Howard Doyle from Mexican Gothic. Mexican Gothic is a gothic horror novel by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. In this book, Noemi Taboada is sent to sort of see what's going on with her cousin. Her cousin married into this weird European family. Her cousin had actually grown up with her and lived with her and her family, so they're really close. And after her husband got married, they sort of cut off communications with the rest of the family. And when a letter finally does get through, it kind of sounds disorganized and a little concerning. So Noemi goes and tries to figure out what's going on. It's real weird, everything is scary, and I love it. The main bad guy's name is Howard Doyle, and he's very obsessed with eugenics. And if you are unfamiliar with eugenics, it's basically this general idea that some genes are better than others and deserve to survive more. And it's also this idea of trying to manipulate genetics and reproduction so that the most favorable traits are those that get passed along. As you can imagine, it gets kind of racist. So the main bad guy is pretty racist. He's very focused on eugenics. He also has like this weird uneasiness about him and you just can't look away from it. He's disturbing. So what is it that makes Howard Doyle so charismatic? To me, it's the fact that you don't see him much throughout the book. You hear about him, it's really ominous. He only has a few interactions here and there with Noemi. However, each of those interactions is just laced with this mystery and these forbidden secrets, and just in a few words each time, you're left with more and more questions. So that is why I feel that Howard Doyle is a charismatic villain. The next charismatic baddie is Scythe Goddard from Scythe. So Scythe is this weird dystopian utopia kind of book where they've healed everything and they've sort of come up with a way to have eternal life, because if someone dies then they just revive them over and over and over again. Because of that, the earth is overpopulated, so they have this group of people called Scythes, and the Scythes have a job to basically, you know, cut down the population a little bit. The majority of Scythes do this with a code, a moral code. They don't cut down out of spite, they don't cut down certain ethnic groups more than others, they don't cut down based on any prejudice or discrimination or anything like that, and they're supposed to be very benevolent in their acts. But they also often do it based on ways that people would die typically. And we can argue about the ethics of that all we want, but I'm not agreeing with it either way because it's not a real thing. But Scythe Goddard kind of kills people in large chunks, like you would see from acts of terrorism, shootings, any natural disasters, anything like that. That's kind of what he goes for when he gleans people. That's what they call it. And I've hated the word glean ever since. But Scythe Goddard is also a pretty charismatic character. The Scythes are expected to be very physically fit and very good at different things. They're supposed to have a lot of different skills. And when one of the main characters starts training under Scythe Goddard, you see him physically improve in everything that he does. So he has the skill to back up what he does. The issue with that is that his skill does not mean that his morals are good. It's pretty crappy, actually. He also has no problem taking up space. He's loud. They all have these different colored robes, except for black. You can't have a black robe, which is very sad, but they don't want to be all Grim Reaper and whatnot. However, Scythe Goddard's robe is very sparkly. It's got like gems and junk on it. He's like, yeah, look at me, I'm awesome. Even though they're not really supposed to be attached to like possessions and things, he's super sparkly. He stands out, you know, that's his whole deal. And he's very passionate about how he does things, and he's very sneaky. And I don't like it, but he's very charismatic, so that's why he's on this list. Our next charismatic baddie is from The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. The main baddie in this book is the woman in white. This book pulls a lot from Lovecraft, and Lovecraft is known for having a lot of racism in his works, threaded throughout the pages. The woman in white in this book pretty much represents bigotry and hate and prejudice and racism, all that just in a big ball. That said, she's also very charismatic. She's always very witty, she's very on point with her style. If you weren't really a critical thinker, you could very easily fall into her way of thinking and fall into her lies and deceit and whatnot. She appears in a lot of different forms, but they all have that same attitude and personality about it. And something that we've seen in a lot of charismatic characters is that they're supposed to be charismatic so they can draw you in, and she actually is actively doing that throughout the book. She's trying to win people over to her side, and she does a really good job of it. I also think she kind of gets a couple of ominous points for the fact that she doesn't really have a name, at least not until the very end of the book. She doesn't really have a name. She's just known as the woman in white, which is very ominous. It's very creepy and, you know, foreboding. So I think that is why I decided to add her to this list. And the very last charismatic baddie is from Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. The main villain in this is Aiden, and Aiden is an artificial intelligence system. So the thing about Aiden is that artificial intelligence systems are typically supposed to be very robotic. They're supposed to be very logic-based and not feelings-based. However, Aiden isn't only an artificial intelligence system. Aiden is basically the system for an entire ship. The entire book pretty much takes place on this spaceship, and a lot of things go very wrong on this spaceship. If you like outbreak stories like zombies and whatnot, you might enjoy this book, because there's a little bit of that vibe going on here. Not only that, but Aiden, the artificial intelligence system, becomes more and more emotional as the book goes on, and slowly becomes very obsessed with one of the characters. And because this book is written in a really alternative format, there are reports, there are messages, there are pages that look like this. Because of that, they really illustrate very well how the mind of Aiden works. And I think that that itself adds to the charisma factor for Aiden. And there's this whole idea of a character that doesn't have a face. It's just this all-seeing entity in this area that they're in. And due to the fact that Aiden is pretty much in all the nooks and crannies of this spaceship, there's a huge imbalance in the power dynamic, which makes Aiden all the more threatening and all the more charismatic. So this was my quick 5 books with charismatic baddies. I'm hoping to do more videos like this, but we shall see. What are some books that you know that have really charismatic villains? And would you like to see a video like this for any other really specific tropes? Let me know in the comments. But that is all for this video, and if you would like more of this junk, subscribe below. Bye! Tripping over shadows and I'm drowning in the night. I feel the soldiers coming and I'm putting up a fight.